was about to show something.
Phew.
ये anime figurine भाई. Yes.
अच्छा. Oh, nice.
Ooh. Live on YouTube.
Are we though?
YouTube. I was like,
Hello, YouTube.
Subscribe before watching the video. Yeah, anime figurine.
Do like, share, subscribe.
Please.
Oh,
And
nice.
like, share, subscribe.
Yeah, comment down your favorite
Live on
GDSC
YouTube.
member. Guys.
Cool it.
Like, hello, YouTube. Subscribe before watching the video. Yeah,
Do like, share, subscribe.
Please.
Oh,
And
nice.
like, share, subscribe.
yeah, comment down your favorite
Live on
GDSC
YouTube.
member. Guys.
Cool it.
Like, hello, YouTube. Subscribe before watching the
ये
video.
Echo क्यों हो रहा है यार?
Varanium hasn't muted the stream.
like, share, subscribe.
हाँ हो गया ठीक.
Why do you mute the stream?
अब ठीक है भाई.
I don't have the stream open though.
कोई बात नहीं, अब ठीक है.
Are we live? Raghav, let's start फिर. Hi.
Yo.
हेलो, मेरी आवाज आ रही है? मेरा स्क्रीन ही खुला था. मैं ईयरफोन पहन रहा हूँ यार. क्या बात कर रहे हो?
अच्छा.
What is this? What is this behavior?
It happens.
मेरा सडनली दिमाग खराब हो गया था. चल के रहते हैं. I think so. Let's start then.
Yeah.
So, hey guys, I'm Raghav Sharma, the co-lead of GDSC TIT, and I welcome you to the UI UX workshop. Over here, I have Varanium Bharadwaj, who is the podcast mentor of GDSC, Ayush Verma, who is the co-lead of GDSC, and Hassan, who is the project mentor here at DSC. So,
Hi guys, so we're here for the UI UX workshop with Nikhil Bakshi and our nice co-lead. You'll be staying muted though all the time. So I guess Nikhil, let's start with your workshop.
Sure. Okay. So I think I can start with a basic introduction of myself. Hi everyone, I'm Nikhil Bakshi and I'm a creative product designer and a front-end developer. And at DSC, I'm the UI UX lead, and I'll be telling you about UI UX and how you can get started with the UI UX. But before that, just a little something about my experience and how I got started. So like any other engineering student, I was exploring the different fields in CS actually, and I tried a variety of stuff. So there was competitive coding, there was Python, and then I went to web dev, and that's what actually I've stuck till now. And in web dev, I learned the basics, HTML, CSS, front end stuff, and there I encountered this term UI UX, and I thought, like, what is this? And when I got to know about it, I thought, let's just learn more about this, and maybe this will help me become a better front-end developer. So when I started UI UX, I didn't know anything about it. I was thinking this is just a small part of being a front-end developer. But as I learned about it, I went through a course and I went through other content regarding this field. I figured out that this is a whole separate field. And why I am working in this field right now is because it's in this sweet spot between tech and creativity, where I can really just try out a lot of things, and so can everyone. So UX design is a really exciting field, and it has helped me get more intentional with the work I do in web development and any coding project. So UX design can help you give meaning to your projects and whatever you are doing. So here's just a brief about what we'll be doing in this workshop. We'll be starting with what actually is UX design and what happens in there, what happens in this field, what are the different parts, a few myths and misconceptions a lot of people have, and then I will be going I'll be giving you a basic introduction about what happens in UX design and what are the design process. And lastly, I will be sharing a few resources which you can use to get started in this field yourself. So firstly, what is the need for UX design? Basically, it really helps in two areas. So first of all, if whenever you're working on a product, it's you might have noticed this that before actually developing the product, going through the coding phase, UX the design phase is done before that, and it's because it helps setting a strong foundation for the product to be built up. And in UX design, it's the role of the UX designer to know about the user needs, to empathize with them, and look at the problems through their eyes. And that's what helps us in designing much lot more intuitive and easy to use products for the users. And secondly, when you during that research time only, you can, it really just brings the whole team together on one page. So it's basically, UX design is basically about having a strong start to your product, and just not basically it reduces the chances of it failing in the future. And again, UX design is actually a iterative process. So even if there is someone who faces some problem in your product, you can again go through the whole process again, and it doesn't usually take that long, and you can get started with you can just remove their problems and refine your product. So UI UX and product design, this is one of the basic misconceptions about this field, that these all are the same things, and it's actually a technical error, this UI UX term. So let's just clear that up. First, UI design. So UI design is basically about what you are looking on you're looking on your screens. So it's basically everything from colors, typographies, to small components, to everything, the bigger navigation bars. Like right now, if you are on Zoom or YouTube, you will see the videos in blocks, and there's text there, and on the bottom of the page, you will see the nav bar kind of thing where you can actually toggle off. So you can toggle your videos and audios. So that's the UI part. That's how it looks, and it's this is usually the part which is mostly regarded to the visual aspects. This is where you will be actually using tools like Figma and Adobe XD and Photoshop and Illustrator. Next is UX design, and UX design is actually a very wide field, and UI design is a part of it. So as a UX designer, having basic visual design skills is important. It's not very important, because it's only a part of the job, and you have to go through a whole different process and consider different aspects of the whole product development phase, like research, prototyping, user flow. And this is basically just to make your product lot more, you can say, stronger and much more intuitive in the end for you. Lastly, product design. The technical difference between product design and UX design is that product design is much more managerial focused. So you will be thinking more from the perspective of your business and your company. So apart from the basic UX design fields, you have to go through other things like timeline, branding, revenue, marketing. So this is usually, technically this is referred to as product design, but practically speaking, in the end, it all comes down to, this whole field is actually only one. So if you are working as a UX designer or a product designer at a company, you will have to be responsible for all of this stuff, regardless of your title. So this is basically just a title difference and not more than that. Moving on to some common doubts and misunderstandings. So now that we have a basic understanding of the different aspects of this field, I will be moving on to some common doubts. And I have seen, and actually I myself had these doubts earlier on as I started, and as I've been going through this for the past year, a lot of my colleagues and friends have also, I've also seen this doubt in a lot of my friends actually. So starting with that, design isn't how it looks like, it's how it works. As I said earlier, UX design and UI design are two separate fields, and UI is a part of UX, but it does not define UX. So as a UX designer, you have to go beyond the screen and look at the problem through the eyes of the user, and actually try to understand how you can solve the problems, and whether or not that visual aspect is needed. And I will show you an example later on. So this is just to give you a basic idea that UX is not only about visuals. So yeah, busting myths. You don't need to master visual design. You don't need to be able to create very beautiful screens when you're starting out. This is literally one of the most common myths about this field. And I too didn't know anything about visual design actually. And I learned it as on the go. So this is something to remember when you're starting out. You can really just learn this as you are working and you are implementing different projects. So you don't need to worry about that. Secondly, you need to know all the tools. And I guess some of you might have this idea about what all tools are needed in this field. And some of them are like Figma and or the Adobe Creative Suite for Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, and different productivity apps like Notion and whatnot. And there's actually no need to learn all of them. So when you're starting out, you can just start out with Figma. It is most commonly used in this field, and you don't need to worry that a lot of tools are being used and everyone is doing it differently. You just when you're starting out, just start with one thing and you can carry it forward. Lastly, you don't need a design team. This is actually, there are two sides to this thing, and it is usually suggested that if you can go through a design degree, you should. If you can afford a design degree, then of course you can go through it. It really helps because a degree will provide you with an environment which self-taught designers don't go through. And you will get to network to a lot of people and you will be exposed to the industry a lot better there. And of course, big companies like Microsoft are always doing campus hirings from institutes, design institutes like National Institute of Design and the IIT's UC program. But it's not true that you have to go get a design degree, because a lot of senior designers at big companies like in Indian companies like Swiggy and Zomato, they themselves are self-taught designers and they themselves are from engineering background as well. So there's no need for a design degree. Here are some common doubts again. You don't need an expensive laptop or tools, and because as I said, usually Figma is being used in this field, and Figma is a software which you don't need, which it doesn't really use a lot of your computer's performance because it runs on cloud. So all you need is a computer and a browser which can run Figma and an internet connection. These are just the basic requirements to get started in UX design. And the time taken to learn UX design, if you look at it through the visual aspects, the visual perspective about the UI design, you can learn a software like Figma in 50 to 60 hours. It's just learning the basic tools and how to use them tools. Other than that, it's when you learn by implementing different projects. So as I said, UX design is a very wide field. And I would suggest that you give it an year and you work on 3 to 4 different case studies and try to create them yourself. Look at how other people have done that, and that's how you will actually learn what actually happens in this field. Lastly, coding and graphic designing. This is another one. Actually, this is really one of the most famous doubts that I need to know about coding because it's speculative, and I need to be a good graphic designer for this. But one thing you need to know is that these fields are entirely separate, and they are they have their own significance in this industry. However, if you do know about them, then that's great. It's actually a bonus point for as a UX designer, but there's no need to know. So actual prerequisites to UX design are these two only. So this is the basic barrier to entry in this field. You need to be a good problem solver and a good communicator to become a UX designer. And problem solving is really just, once you get a problem, it's about, UX is about how deep you can understand that problem, how you can spread your knowledge regarding that problem. Apart from that, communication is actually one thing that not a lot of people understand about, because as a UX designer, you should be able to communicate well. You need to be able to convey your ideas, your projects to the stakeholders. And by stakeholders, I mean your team, the team with you are working with. So it can be developers, your managers, and as students, it would be actually a hackathon team. So it's in the end, it's about teamwork. And when you design anything, your team should be able to understand that whatever you have designed is actually what you can go, which you can stand together with, and you can develop it into an actually very useful product. Moving on, here's an example about regarding this field, how problem solving is actually very important in this field. So I guess you guys must have heard about Swiggy and even use it. This is a case study by Swiggy themselves actually, and this is the problem they have actually faced. So when Swiggy started out initially, this was their UI. So when you would click on the Swiggy icon, it would open up with the logo and it will then go to the homepage of Swiggy app. And here you can see that the address is at the top of the page, and when you click the top of the page, you can change your address. But what Swiggy noticed was that a lot of their users didn't know about this, and they would. What happened was a lot of their users would just cancel their orders in between. So that's a very bad UX for them, and it would actually lead to them losing their customers. So what they did was, just to make this feature much more accessible and easily understandable, they updated their app, and this is the second iteration of the Swiggy app. So when you open the Swiggy app, you will first see the logo, and then it will move on to this little animation where it shows the user what which address is selected. So and then again it will move on to the home page, and this address was animated to the top of the page, so that now user knows two things. One thing, firstly, they know which address is selected, and secondly, they know where they can change their address from. So basically, it's just simplifying the whole process. But in the end, it is even more simplified now, because if you would have used Swiggy currently, you would have noticed this, that whenever you open the app will ask you to select the address directly. So in the beginning of their whole process, you will know that you have selected the correct address and you don't need to cancel the order. So I hope this actually clears up that initial misconception that you would say about what you see. It really goes deeper into the mindset of the user. It's about whether they're experiencing problems not only away from the app, but also in what problems they're facing in the app, and what's the best way to solve the problems. So that's why problem solving is an important skill in this field. So I showed you the Swiggy case study, and I showed you how they solved the first problem. So this is the UX designers, they follow this basic design process, and these are basically just a few steps that are followed and done by the UX designers to actually create really good products. So, but if you Google this design process, you will notice that there are a variety of design processes, and this is because each and every designer and each and every company have their own design process, and they have molded it into their own through their own perspective, and just to create their own values, create their own brand values. But no process is complete without this basic design thinking. So this is a very simple 5-step process: sympathize, define, identify, test. And to explain that, I will be using the double diamond approach. So basically, whenever you are creating a product, the basic reason behind creating a product is solving a problem. So this is basically how the whole process is structured. You start with the problem, and then you move on to the solution phase. And the problem phase, the first step is discover, which basically means you are spreading your knowledge about the problem. You do that through a lot. There are a lot of processes and a lot of things you can do for that. So basically, like interviews, you can ask users what problems are they facing. You can go through surveys. You can actually just Google stuff and see what people are sharing on social media. Try to get into the user's mind. And once you have all the data, you have all the user problems distributed in one place, you just take a bird's eye view and try to look for patterns and themes which are in the data. And those patterns and themes will actually help you define what's the actual singular problem which needs to be solved for them. That's the second step. You are now contracting towards one singular problem statement which will help you develop that basic foundation upon which the solution is made. And again, in the solution phase, it's the same similar approach. Here development means you are ideating various solutions, and here it's really about getting as many ideas as you can. So whatever idea that comes into your mind that can solve this problem, potentially you just note it down in one place, and then again you take a bird's eye view and discuss with your team, and you decide on one or two different solutions which can together help solve this small problem. And last step is deliver, which is actually developing the product design, making the final designs and converting everything together. And then there's the fifth part, which is the test part. And here it's simply about just showing the users your product and asking them what they feel about it, whether they are facing any problems going through it, and are there any problems in the whole user flow of whatever you have created. And then if the users are facing any problem, you can again go through the whole process, and that's why it's usually said that design thinking is actually an iterative process. So the way I see the design process is, I have to make it simple for me, I have divided into two parts. First is context, and the other thing is creativity. Context, as I said about the problem part, was really just understanding the problem. Why are you designing a product in the first place? Because if you are not clear about the problem, if you are not clear about the why behind your work, why you are working, then it can really lead to a lot of problems in the future. So if your starting point is not clear, then it's really just it becomes hard for the whole of your team. You will have to call that point back and you have to redesign it. That's why it's really important to understand the context behind the problem. That's what I just said. Design. You have to first design the right thing rather than designing the thing right, because the starting point is a really important in the design process. If you get it wrong, then iterating upon it again and again might not be useful. So even if you start right and you face any problems in the future, you can again iteratively go through the process again and refine the product for future. Here's just an example of context. So this is the McDonald's website in the USA and in Japan. And you will notice, like on the first ring, you will notice that on the Japan side, red color is more apparent as compared to the US website. And this is basically because in USA, red color is thought of as a danger signal, and it's not really properly used. Whereas in Japan, red color is much more of an auspicious color, and people relate it through their culture and through their traditions. That's why McDonald's is using more of it in their website in Japan, just to make the whole experience for the users relatable. But apart from that, if you notice it more deeply, you will notice that in USA, the focus is on packaged food and getting a lot of quantity in food. Whereas in Japan, it's more about singular items and small quantities of food. This again is just relating to the Japanese people's tradition, because in Japan, people focus on eating small quantities and singular quantities at a time. So I hope this clears up understanding context and how important it really is in this field. The next part was creativity, and as I said, during that double diamond solution phase, you spread out on your ideas. Whatever idea you can get, you have to write it down, and you have to go through that idea. You can go through each and every idea. You can see everything. And here, I will be telling you about how you can actually. This creativity part is also actually about the visual aspects. Here, the UI design also comes into play, and is a basic process which I have followed, and I suggest that you guys can also follow to get better at the visual aspects of design. So you start by seeking inspiration, which basically means Googling. If you have to develop a website, you just look at different websites that have already been created. And if your focus is toward a similar type of website, then you will go through that. And the same goes for applications, mobile applications, and everything. So if I have to develop a social media app, then I will go through the design of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Just try to understand what different design principles they are using, how they are engaging their users, and what is their mentality in this process. And the second part is analyze and copy. And this is really about trying to understand how users interact with an application and how you can motivate the user to keep coming back to your application. This is usually done, and you can also do this by actually just getting a screenshot of their website, a very good website or famous website, and then you copy that website on Figma or the HDMI, wherever, just so that you understand the different design principles they're trying to implement. What process they have gone through to reach to that conclusion. The third process is when you are working on your own projects, because creating is really about copying. If you don't know where you can get inspiration from, and you don't understand the design process, you can't create your own projects. And creating your own projects, you start by copying others. So this is the three-part process, and the last part, which is share your learnings. This is actually very important, and not a lot of people will talk about this, but this really helps you in networking with industry specialists, people who are actually designing and who are actually working in this field. Because I myself have done this, and I do share my projects on LinkedIn and Twitter, and I do get a lot of valuable feedback through there. And so this is actually an important step again, because if you can share your work, it's really this. It will also help you with your communication skills. As I said, communication is really important. So you see that you start by copying, and you end up with research. So it's an iterative process. You have to start somewhere, and you will realize after some time that you're going to get back to that place, because it's an iterative process. You have to go through it again and again. And what really makes it actually fun is every time you will face a new problem, and you'll notice that it's not really a new problem. This problem has already been faced by someone else, and it has been solved by someone else. All you have to do is just keep an open mind and try to understand what users have gone through earlier and even today. So where to begin? So I hope you guys have gotten the Bootcamp mission page. And here on the UX UI part, you will see this resources page that I have made for you guys. And these are some of the resources which I myself have used, and they have really helped me become a better designer and get better in this field. So this is what I would suggest. How you can go through these resources is you can start with the visual aspect of design, the UI part, and just download Figma. It's a free software, and if you have the student ID, you can get it. You can get the pro plan for free for I think 2 years. After that, these are 2 playlists by Figma themselves, where they are explaining their tools and how to use them. This will really help you understand the software better, and if you can understand, if you can use Figma really well, then it's not very hard to get jobs in this field. Getting freelance clients or internships, it doesn't get very hard if you can go through Figma. And after that, there is this daily UI design challenge. This is like a 100-day of design challenge. This will really help you sharpen your design skills. Really, it's about designing small components, how different screens work, and this is the basic stuff. After that, as I told you about creativity, it's about copying. These are some of the most famous resources out there when it comes to UX design. So GANs is really about case studies and the deep dive into UX. So when you're working on your own project and you have to create your own case studies, then I would suggest you should go through them, because there is some very awesome content in it. Apart from that, the other resources, Google and Morgan and UI resources, these are basically people sharing what they have designed and screenshots of apps which are already existing. And I would suggest if you want to get better at UI, then you should start with just copying it. So just get a screenshot of the of any app you like and try to emulate it on Figma. It will really sharpen your design skills and help you understand the different design principles which are being implemented. Apart from that, if you have to learn about UX, which is a separate field from UI, these are some of the resources which I myself have used. So if you go through any of them, these will tell you about any topic in UX design, be it research, design systems, or prototyping. You will get detailed resources of each and every of these topics in these. Apart from that, this is the Google UX specialization which I myself went through. There are total of 7 courses here, and you guys can take that also. This is a free course on Coursera. One thing which I would like you to keep in mind about this course is that this is really Google's perspective towards design. So they are telling about they will be teaching you about how they are approaching design at Google, and you have to keep in mind that design is not limited to this process, and it is not limited to the design thinking which I told you about, because each and every designer, they create their own process. Make they make products with, and they add a brand value to it through their own way. So if you do go through this course, then I would suggest don't limit yourself to this. In fact, I would say that don't limit yourself to any of these resources. Try to find out things on your own and try to experiment with all the stuff on your own. So this is basically about UX design. And as beginners, I would suggest you can go through this UX UI design by Anshmera. He's also a self-taught designer, and he's actually at a senior position at a startup in India, which recently got funded. So he is sharing really good resources in this field, and he's actually taking a step-by-step process to getting a good UX design role and becoming a UX designer. So he has a course on YouTube. He has a playlist on YouTube with 15 videos. So definitely go through that. It will really help you get a good insight into UX design. Apart from that, these are some of the creators on YouTube which I go through myself, and they are really they share really good content. Yes, I'm sure as well. Apart from that, I shared some tools which I myself am using, and so these are really helpful when you get good at designing and you have to regularly go through the process of designing. So that's it about resources. Definitely give them a check. So that's it. Are there any questions I can answer?
So we'll be opening for questions. So you can actually unmute your mic and ask some questions. Yeah, please go ahead. You can unmute yourselves if you want, or you can write in the chat and
I can
discuss about it. Chat text. Yeah.
Let's see the questions in the chat.
Do you have anything to show actually? Could practical example वगैरह दिखाने को?
Not really. I can show them what I have done. I can show them something I have because Figma is actually it takes a lot of time to understand it. So should I show them some examples or?
Yeah, sure. I think it would be cool.
Oh. So this is my Behance portfolio, and I've posted only 3 projects here. These are 2 of the projects which I worked on. Uh, this one I worked on with the Google specialization courses. This is basically an app I designed for a hypothetical cafe in New York. So this is here I've explained the whole process which I went through. I started with research, interviewed a few people, and I actually made a survey using Google Form, analyzed the data to actually get some important insights regarding this product. And these are a few personas. These I, my view of the kind of users who would be actually using this product. So these are the 2 personas I made just to give an idea of the user demographic of my user journey is basically the process a user will go through when they start using their apps. Competitive analysis, again, this is about creativity. As I said, it's about copying and just studying what other people have done. So here I've studied Starbucks and Cafe Coffee Day, and we listed out what I thought was their strengths and the weaknesses. And this really helped me in getting a basic idea about what I can do to make my app stand out in the market. So yeah, here I've listed the research insights. And this is the ideating phase. Is again my take on a possible solution, and this is how it started. I developed a basic user flow. A person would go through if they use this app. Information architecture. This is basically listing out each and every page that I will be adding and what are the different components in that page. Storyboarding. This process is actually very optional, and this is just to get a more stronger idea and a clearer idea regarding the product you are making. So paper wireframe is basically you start by listing out what all you need on one page, and then you draw all the possible screens with different permutation combinations of whatever you will be adding on that page. So in the end, this really just gave me like an overview of what can be created. This is a low fidelity prototype and wireframe. The digital wireframes I made on Figma. So this lists out the basic user flow of how one would go through this app. So you start with the home page, you can go to the menu, you can go. After selecting different items, you can check out the cart and pay through it and your order. Usability study. This is that test phase of the design process which I told you about, and it's really about just showing the basic apps, basic thing that you have created to the users and asking them to go through it and sharing their experience of going through the process of, in this case, ordering a coffee at this cafe using my app. So this is a basic questions which I developed, which I thought which should be asked during the process. And lastly, this is
Nikhil Samath actually had a question. He was asking how much time does this take, the entire process of building this entire design?
The case study. So the case study, this one took me nearly 1 month. This case study, but there is this another case study, the design sprint. So design sprint is the whole design process. You just so I told you about the design thinking process, the 5 steps in design thinking, and empathize, ideate, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test. So you do that whole process in just 5 days, and in those 5 days, each day is for one of those steps. So this case study I made in 5 days in August, actually last year. So this is a basic overview of the timeline which I went through. I started on Tuesday and ended on Saturday with the usability study. So it really actually depends upon the product you are working on. So if you are starting a new thing and you are starting a whole new product. And like in startups, what usually happens is when you start with the design phase, it usually takes 1 to 2 months to understand what the actual needs of the user are, and getting a basic idea about what the possible product can be, which can solve that problem. And again, if you can, it's suggested that you do go through that usability study part of the design process, because it will help you refine your product. So I hope that answers you. And also, actually, this case study did uh, with I did with Yash. He's the web development mentor here, and you guys have a workshop with him tomorrow. So we made this case study in one day. We had participated in a designathon at Manipal, Jaipur, and we were our problem statement was to study and analyze the Amazon's mobile app and suggest a few changes to it. So we had to do this in 24 hours. We made the work in 24 hours. So and here we are discussing our solution. So we told them that this is the original one and this is the.
Yeah, Nikhil, Samarth is asking if there are any designathons or competitions in which he can take part in to learn more of this.
There are definitely a lot of designathons.
And
It's
how would
actually-
you find them?
No, I'm showing it. So in my resources area, there is this Designers Mind Palace page. Kshitij Agarwal, he's a designer. I think he'll be starting his design journey at JPMC soon. So he has actually gathered all the resources which actually helped him become a UX designer. So here he has listed out everything. So there are also conferences you can attend and design competitions here. So these are the most famous design competitions, and most recently this Microsoft Design Challenge is coming up in December. You can take part in. Other than that, I would suggest just Google it. Google or whatever you want to take part in. I think there are a few platforms like MLH-like platforms. I would suggest they would list some of them. I think DevPost and Dev4 you would list a few design. Are there any other questions? Hello.
Let's wait a couple more minutes, and if no one has any more questions, I think so we can end it.
Oh, okay. One thing about this project which I would like to share is that this took place last year, and it was, as I said, a designathon. We were supposed to do this in 24 hours, but what had happened was that it was conducted on a Saturday, and we were given time from Saturday morning 10 a.m. to Sunday morning 10 a.m. to create and submit this case study. But what had happened that at that time was that just the previous day on Friday, Amazon had updated their UI. So if you see your Amazon's UI now, it looks something like this. It looks something like this. But previously it was really very bad, and we actually found a lot of problems with the original design. But since the design had changed, this is actually a lot more better than it used to be. This was actually a problem for us because we didn't know what more changes we can make because Amazon had already done that. So we went through the whole design process. We did the research and we figured out that there were actually a few problems with this design as well. And we have, as you can see here, we have listed them here, and we have made the respective changes here. So the design process is actually very useful when it comes to refining the product. So that's what is something you can keep in mind. And we actually came, we were the second, we came third in this competition.
Are there any more questions for Nikhil? All right, guys. I think it was a great workshop by Nikhil, and I think it was very interesting to see the world of product design and user experience. So we'll catch up with you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be having our web development workshop hosted by Yashvardhan and Darshan, and it will be taking place from 5 p.m. The links will be shared to you on your emails. Nikhil is also available on our Discord server, so we actually have a UI UX channel on our Discord as well.
Oh, definitely. You guys can actually. You guys can actually. Anand, go. Anand, I was just saying that if you guys have any doubts, you can definitely ask them on Discord. But if you guys have actually done some work in this field, I would suggest that you can also share your work on Discord, because it will actually help others start with their projects, and you guys can get some really good feedback on their projects. So I would suggest you should share on Discord or on our Discord channel. Apart from that, LinkedIn and Twitter are really great platforms for sharing your work. So
yeah. So actually, I'm just sharing the Discord link on the chat. Just a second.
Don't worry. Got you.
Cool. Yeah. So it was nice meeting you guys. We hope to see you tomorrow as well. So yeah, from our side, the workshop is over. Now it's an informal discussion, so you guys can talk.
Hi. Hi, Nikhil.
I would be hosting tomorrow. Raghav, forms थे सबको to turn on their videos or everything.
Yeah.